Brazil, the brand Nokia was regarded as a really resistant and high quality device manufacturer. And don't you think it's a big loss for Microsoft to change the brand altogether?
So we've had to study very carefully the dynamics of changing brands. First of all, it was a necessary change. I mean, it was not a choice, it was a necessary change. It was part of the deal between Nokia and Microsoft. But we've been very, very pleasantly surprised, because when we studied the consumer feedback, even before we began to introduce devices under the Microsoft name as to how people would respond, it was very positive. So Nokia has a brand that stands for certain qualities, so does Microsoft. And so we're going through that transition, but the feedback from consumers is very positive. We are clearly doing interesting things, introducing new products under the Microsoft brand, and that will further affect how people view the brand. So we think it's going well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Francisco Museño from Forbes, Mexico. My question is, Nokia has a great market in Latin America, and Microsoft with this strategy for the mobile. And what's your plans for the Latin America market and emerging markets for Microsoft and mobile devices? And I'm talking about the devices, the apps, etc.
So it's been a long history, both for Nokia and for Microsoft, to have a very strong presence in Latin America. Certainly in Mexico, our relationships with our various partners there have been very strong. I'm meeting with a number of them even this week who are here. And we will continue, as we have, for example, in Mexico, to introduce the full range of devices. You've seen a number of examples of everything from low-cost devices to flagships being actually quite successful in Mexico in cycles of device launches. You'll see that continue. We've got a lot planned, specifically for Latin America. The thing that we're looking forward to is that the broad Windows 10 experience, which is common across the phone, the PC, the tablet, all of those form factors, we're looking forward to bringing that to Latin America as well, so that in various markets where PCs or phones or whatever have more or less strength, they can all benefit from each other. It's a really important part of our strategy to get Windows 10 in place so that there's a common development platform for the Windows environment. So a developer can build an application once and just indicate how should it look on a small screen, how should it look on a large screen, build the application once and have it work as a universal application across all of the form factors. One of the things that's impressed me about Mexico, I've visited a number of times, is the investment that's been made in the last 5 to 10 years in engineering, universities, the number of young engineers who are building applications. There's a very dynamic ecosystem of capability in Mexico alone. And we're very interested in making sure that community of people is developing for Windows as we go forward.
Samir from Colombia. What do you think has happened, and what would other regions could learn about what Microsoft and Nokia had done in Latin America? If you look at the market share of Windows Phone in the region, it's much higher than in the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. What do you think you could take out of Latin America and take to the other regions so you could increase some of that market share? So
the interesting thing about mobile devices is you have to look very closely at the market dynamics country by country. Every country, even in Latin America, Mexico is very different than Colombia, and you know many of the dynamics why that is so. And what we observe is one of the biggest differences is the degree to which consumers are aware of the actual price of devices and what they're getting for their money. In some markets, like the United States, it's very hard to understand what you're actually paying and how much, because of the subsidies and things like that. It's sort of something very strong in the U.S., and as you go east and south, it becomes less and less so. And so in markets where people realize that, wow, this Lumia 640 XL is 1/3 of the price of a top-end flagship device from a couple of notable companies, and yet has an amazing experience, a great camera, has the full suite of Office applications, will be upgraded to Windows 10. That type of message is very easy for a consumer to understand, and at a very affordable price they can get a great experience. And so the thing that I would export from Latin America to the United States, for example, is a different model around the economics of the phones. And the interesting thing, and I think this is to our advantage, certainly to the consumer's advantage, is the subsidy model is starting to diminish in the United States. You see the financing model coming into place where people actually know, the phone costs something. It's not free. Nothing is free. And so I think that dynamic is beginning to shift. And I know American operators who got into the subsidy game have looked at markets around the world and said, man, that looks like a better model.
Yes.
I see it beginning to happen.
Cheaper for them. Thank you.
Hi, Sebastián Catalano from Forbes Argentina. In general, for Microsoft and for your division, what are the main keys for the industry for the next years?
Mm-hmm. I think the thing that we recognize and are really focused on is there's very few companies who can deliver and control all aspects of the experience that we put in front of a consumer. So this device is not only a collection of pieces of hardware, which many other companies here at Mobile World Congress are able to do, but it's also the software, the cloud-based services, it's the support network, it's all of those pieces together. And the fact that we can bring all of those pieces together means that the conversation we can have with a consumer is far more complete. Take the Surface Pro 3 that's in front of us here right now. One of the reasons that that device is being so successful is because we took beautifully designed hardware, we took the pen capability, we made changes to the OneNote software and the security environment within Windows so that with one click of the pen you can begin writing on it like a tablet, just like that. And being able to bring all of those pieces together gave us the possibility of delivering a really compelling, complete experience. If I was just a hardware manufacturer, I would be telling you just about the number of megapixels or the silicon or whatever. But instead, when we presented earlier today, I was able to discuss the entire experience, and not just around phones, around the entire suite of technology that is Windows. And so I think the trend that you will see more and more is people wondering, yeah, there's another new flagship from whatever company, does it really matter? As opposed to, here's a whole new breadth of experience. And this is where, not only on existing form factors, but extending Windows to something like HoloLens, where now, whether you're developing for the phone or the PC or a holographic computer, you're actually able to take advantage of that new capability because it's on all of these devices. That type of investment and the fact that we can land that in so many different places, software, hardware, and the cloud, is very, very powerful. And again, there's only a few companies who have all of those different pieces, and therefore I think we'll be competing on a much broader basis.
And at least in Brazil, the strategy that Microsoft is apparently doing or executing is kind of a race to the bottom with the prices. And usually the last ones were really low priced. I don't think, is that strategy the best one to compete in such a kind of a market, an emerging market, or do you believe that there's also room to compete with higher tier devices, even in Brazil, with alternatives in iOS and Android?
So our strategy is to deliver premium devices at each of the major price points. So it's a bit different than you described. So, at this price point, I want someone to look at this and say, boy, I was going to spend about that much money, and that's a premium device. Isn't that beautiful? Look at the capabilities. Oh, and it's got Cortana. It's got, all of the Office capabilities. It's got an Office 365 subscription. I want people to have that conversation. And I want people at different price points to be saying the same things. Now, the expectation of someone spending, somewhere between 100 and 200 euros is different than someone spending, 800 euros. And so premium means different things at different tiers, but that's very much our strategy. And so what we're trying to do is to say Microsoft and Windows stands for something very consistently, and will deliver that in a premium way at each of the price points.
Okay. Microsoft has always been Microsoft. It's always been known about his about productivity. And do you consider with the devices Microsoft has the strategy to get the people, to executive officers, to this market? It's the people. Do you want to?
We want everyone to be more productive through our devices, and as you know, that means different things to different people in a company or in a home environment. I mean, there's someone who is staring at that Excel spreadsheet and working on a computer to get it modeled just correctly, but then perhaps the manager or the executive wants to look at just the bottom line or just play around with the model. And as you saw today, I can take my device, use Excel, work that someone has done, change a few parameters, and understand. So each role in the organization is going to use the devices different ways. But what you saw, and I'm glad you mentioned this, is the whole idea that these experiences can be shared across different types of devices. So think about the Surface Hub, the very large device you saw on stage there today. So something that might start as a new Excel spreadsheet on a Surface Pro 3 might be edited a little bit on a phone, but then when you go in to present to the board of directors, you're not playing with Excel, you're presenting something formally on a very large format display that everyone can see, and in fact, if they want to, can share in. That's our ambition, is to bring everybody in doing what's right for them in their different roles.
Okay.
One of the issues we've had in the past is the time that it takes for the products to get to Latin America. Then you look at some of your competitors and they'll be there in probably a month or a month and a half. Will we see any changes with this new devices and with the new strategy? Will we see the products earlier in Latin America?
So one of the things, if you look at our history of product launches, our very first Lumia launches, you saw devices landing first in the United States and then months and months and spreading around. If you look at the most recent launches, we've deliberately been compressing that time frame, so more and more countries get devices earlier and earlier. Now there's always some differences. Certain countries have certain requirements from a manufacturing perspective where that takes more time. It takes more time to get components in. There's complexities in Latin America. There's a number of complexities.
Brazil, Argentina.
Absolutely. But I mean, you know this well, but more than probably even I do. But because of that, there's some adjustment, but our intention is to compress that as much as we can. It's far better for all of our customers if we can launch a product, and when people are seeing the Lumia 640 XL for the first time, I want them to be able to buy it as soon as possible after that moment, wherever they are in the world. So that's our ambition, and you'll see that improve over time, but again, there are some regional challenges that always cause a little bit of that.
Two things about you, the best and the worst of your return to Microsoft.
The best and the worst of my return to Microsoft. Well, I would say the best is what I was saying earlier about the totality of the strategy. The fact that we can have a discussion amongst ourselves at Microsoft about the hardware, the software, the services, and say, here's the whole product that we want to deliver. And so different teams all over the company, indeed all over the world, can get aligned and we can deliver something in totality. That's something that is really, really powerful, and something that I think our consumers will benefit from. In terms of the challenges coming back from Microsoft, I think in any integration, two companies coming together, it takes time. I mean, it just takes a lot of time to bring people through the onboarding process, to change payroll systems, there's just all this work you have to do. And what you realize is that work is critically important. It must be done. And yet at the same time, you're not totally focused just on the next beautiful device. So anytime I'm in a meeting, making sure that all the payroll systems come together, I know I'm not sitting, worried about the next product. And so integration, takes time. Now we're through that. It always takes months and months. We're through it at this point. But nonetheless, that's always something when you bring companies together. There's an extra price you pay to combine companies, and that, it's something that just has to be done.
So probably anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
I think if I can just summarize and this point has come out several times, but with Windows 10, and with hardware, software, and services all together under the Microsoft roof. Our clear intent is to use Windows 10 as the platform that delivers a common experience across all the devices, a common developer platform across all the devices. Build one application, have it go everywhere. And of course, the final thing, you saw us announce this in January, is it's very important for us to aggressively upgrade people to Windows 10. Because in this war of ecosystems, these big ecosystems of applications, we have many, many people using Windows of some flavor. We want many, many people using Windows of a Windows 10 flavor so that we can create the right environment for long-term success. So thank you very much for your good questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.